not just a matter of, hey, look at this interesting thing a city's doing. It's, hey, look at what we learned about Columbia based on what we learned in Lexington.
And I think the impactful thing for me from an individual standpoint is going on these trips, I've come back and realized that we do a lot of things really great in Columbia.
You know, it's just an overall positive experience that I've been missing out on.
So on the first day, we were welcomed by the mayor, and then we got an overview of Lexington, an explanation of some of the issues and the situation that they're in. Having the beautiful horse farms around Lexington, that is one of their major assets, but also something that creates issues for them.
They were hoping their urban service area would help control growth and reduce urban sprawl, but it's really pushed that growth out to other areas outside of Lexington. With their housing market, they don't really have a lot of affordable housing. I was surprised when I asked a question what a first-time home buyer's house would cost, and I was given the answer around $250,000. That's much different than Columbia.
So the problem then is there's no low-income housing, they have a housing shortage, they cannot grow, they cannot bring in the tax base they need. They're trying to make that balance between what do you value in terms of your culture and what do you need to sustain an economically viable city.
Columbia is mindful of affordable housing as we develop, and we need to make sure that we continue that because we don't want to be in a situation where we displace people and don't have anywhere to go.
So the question is, how does Columbia address our own struggles? How do we remain economically viable? How do we preserve what makes Columbia, Columbia? How do we avoid kind of that trap of limiting it so much that people can't buy a house?
On day 2 in the morning, we spent the first part talking about real estate issues, and the second part of the morning talking about healthcare issues.
So Randy Morrow and I also participated on a roundtable to describe how community hospital and an academic hospital could potentially work together. And I think there was a great deal of interest to learn about ways that Mizzou and Boone Hospital potentially could partner together.
One of the topics that we researched and was presented to us at the University of Kentucky was the concept of university cities.
They compared Mizzou or Columbia with the college towns in total, and we did great in terms of the arts, in terms of college education for the populace, restaurants, in terms of sporting events, a whole variety of things. It made you proud to live in Columbia, and it made you proud to live in a college town.
Again, it was one of those moments where you come back and you say, we're doing things really well in Columbia. And knowing that we can benchmark ourselves against other communities that are even larger than Columbia, and we're doing things in a lot of instances better than they are.
But I'm here to tell you that Lawrence would definitely have been way farther down the list.
So day 3 of our trip was at the Lyric Theater, and this is where we really started to touch on some of the toughest issues that we have in Columbia and comparing them to what Lexington went through a few years ago and how they dealt with their issues.
We had the member of the school board, the police chief, a gentleman from the Urban League that kind of talked about conversations that they are having in Lexington around the topics of race, around the topics of social equity, policing, and all these things that, whether we individually know it or not, have a significant impact on everybody in the community.
They had some issues with policing that have been kind of on the forefront across the country. Obviously, they're dealing with the same things that we are.
It's a difficult conversation. I think nationwide we're trying to have that conversation, but they pulled together in a wonderful way to really talk about those issues and how you can really look at equity and social justice across the board.
They appeared to have a very cohesive community that the major players, city government, schools, and the larger businesses worked very well together. And I think we enjoy the same thing.
You know, now that we're back and I reflect back on that trip, I realize that the bond that's created is deeper than your normal event that you would just do after work here in Columbia.
The whole idea is that it's the mix and match quality, where you're talking to people you might not normally talk to. You might be coming at the same issue from different perspectives. You don't even know you're working on the same issue, and you can really come together with new ideas.
And I think we have a stewardship responsibility as community leaders to help make change happen in our community, make it the best it can possibly be.
And that's what it's all about. This is the whole reason for the chamber trip, from my estimation, is to get all these people that don't necessarily work together every day, but we all have the same goal in mind, and that's a better Columbia. And so if we continue those relationships and continue those conversations, we're only going to get better.